I'm going to give you a thumbs up.
Phone call,
I know.
We have all the sticky notes too.
She's lying. I'll be there in a half an hour. You lying.
Oh boy, here we go. This password.
It's a different password than
So I'm trying to remember that one.
It's sticking out right there, and then
I know I said it last time, but
It was in here. I lost it. Okay. Good afternoon. Welcome to Battle Creek Public Schools Board of Education meeting. Today is Monday, June the 10th, 2024. It is now 5:35. We now have the secretary to please call the roll.
Dr. Luce Johnson,
Here.
Dr. Nicole Perry,
present.
Catherine LaValle,
Present.
Nathan Bridget,
Here.
Art McClinney,
Here.
Charlie Fulbright,
present.
Patty Fulbright.
Present. We'll now have a message from regarding the interpreters. After a few weeks off, as we work through our technical difficulties, we are excited to be able to offer Spanish interpretation for tonight's board meeting. Thanks to our partners from Voices in Battle Creek. For those interested in tuning in, you can join the Zoom webinar by visiting bcpsbanespanol and then selecting the language options at the button. As always, to our board members and presenters, please remember to speak clearly, slowly, and try to avoid speaking over each other. Thank you. Okay. The chair will now entertain the approval for the agenda, considerations, additions, or deletions.
President Poole Gray,
Yes, Trustee LaValle?
I'd like to make a motion to approve our agenda for June 10th, 2024 for this evening.
Support.
It's been moved by Trustee LaValle, supported by Trustee Fulbright, that we approve the agenda, considerations, additions, or deletions. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All those opposed say no. Motion carried. Moving down to public comment. The Battle Creek Public Schools Board of Education recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the community to express themselves on district matters. We have two opportunities on our agenda tonight for public comment. The Board of Education requests you fill out a public participation form with contact information. As you come to the microphone, please state your name. Each statement made by a speaker shall be limited to a 3-minute duration. If the speaker represents a group, the person will be given 5 minutes to speak. Battle Creek Public Schools Board of Education will listen, take comments and questions under advisement, and not respond at this time. Public commenters will direct all comments of the Board of Education and not to staff or early participants. Do we have any public comment? Thank you. Okay, reports and recommendations. K-5 Literacy Curriculum Resource, Greg Bish.
Greetings.
Hello.
To pull up this real quick. Is that full screen enough? Sorry. All right, I'm Greg Bish, the Director of Elementary Education here in Battle Creek, and June Parker is with me, our Coordinator of District Literacy Services, and Teresa Yeck, our Coordinator of Curriculum Instruction. Today I'm going to walk you through our recommendation for a new K-5 literacy program to support our curriculum and our new science reading initiatives. Before we start, I wanted to give just some thanks to the team. We've been working on this for over a year now. And up here I have listed all the teachers and principals and district folks that have participated in our literacy adoption process. I'm just going to go through real quick and name them. Kelly Blanchard, Sean Caldwell, Amy Corder, Jennifer Flowers Bentley, Ashley Latham, Willandra Maglin Malone, June Parker, Angela Partial, Cassie Query, Jenny Ryan, Courtney Shorter, Becky Smith, Kim Thomas, Bobby Van Warmer, Lindsay Walden, Rhonda Washington, Teresa Eck, and Kristen Youngs. Without them, this would have been a much lengthier process, but we put in many, many hours of time together to go through this. So big thank you to them. I think we named it as over 300 hours in the adoption process. So, all right, just to give you a rundown of what has been happening with this, we started in spring of last year, probably around February, and we walked through each of these steps. So at the beginning, it was really around establishing our process, developing a lens for what we were looking for. Each step along the way led us to the point where we are right now, spring 2024, where we have made a decision and we're bringing it to you today. The next slides, we're going to kind of talk through the process as we went through. So part of the establishing the process and developing our lens was really looking at what is it that we want in a literacy program here in Battle Creek, and what do we need differently in Battle Creek than other districts might need. We wanted to make sure that not only our programs that we were investigating were research-based and evidence-based, but they also fit our needs, fit our students' and teachers' needs. So we spent quite a bit of time doing that in last spring before we even started bringing vendors in. We spent, I want to say, 7 meetings of a couple hours each time after school hours, just coming up with this before we even brought anybody into the room. We knew that we needed to change what we have, right? So Journeys has been the program that we've been using for about 11 years now. At that time, Journeys was one of the most reputable programs that was out there. Journeys and Reading Street were our 2 reading programs that we had piloted for a year. Ultimately, we ended up going with Journeys. Journeys is actually sunsetting this year, so they're not even going to offer it anymore because most reading programs only go about 10 years. So they've gone longer than most actually do. I think they're about 12 years in, but HMH has decided to move on from Journeys, and they're offering different programs like Into Reading, which we're looking at today. As we were looking through it, we also know that ed reports and state education departments like the state of Massachusetts, Mississippi, New York, they all go through different programs and rate them. Journeys has been slowly working its way down to not meeting expectations. A lot of the research around science of reading has changed, and we know that we need something different for our kids, and Journeys isn't that anymore. So that multiple reasons why we are looking for something different, but we are at a point with Journeys that the road has ended. So we evaluated many different literacy programs, and what we said essentially was, when we went through these, what is out there in the country? We used What Works Clearinghouse, Ed Reports, looked at different states that reviewed different reading programs, the Reading League, and we only allowed ourselves to pick programs that were rated highly effective across the board. So we weren't inviting any vendors to come that were not already rated at meeting expectations. We also narrowed it to programs that were already, or they were not within the last 5 years or prior, so they couldn't be over 5 years old, because we knew that the longevity of a program is around 10 years, and if we did this now, we didn't want to be in a place that we had to do this again 5 years from now. So anything that was
2019.
before 2019, we didn't consider. We sent out an RFP and we got multiple responses that narrowed us down to 5. So the 5 that we brought in, I don't know if it's on the next slide or not. Nope. The 5 that we brought in was HMH's Into Reading, McGraw-Hill's Wonders,
Benchmark Advance.
Benchmark Advance, Imagine Learning had EL Education, and then
Did you get Wonders? Reading? Reading? It was Into Reading, My View Literacy, Benchmark Advance, Imagine Learning, and Wonders.
My View Literacy. That was the other. Okay. So we narrowed it down to the 5. We spent a lot of time investigating the materials. We had vendors coming in and they did presentations for us. We developed a rubric of our own because we know that Ed Reports, WhatWorks Clearinghouses, these different companies, they've already gone through it with the rubric. So what we did is we took the lens that we created last spring, our vision of what we wanted, and what we needed the program to have in terms of the components for science of reading and for effectiveness. And we created our own rubrics and went through and had all of the participants go through and do their own scores. So they were broken up into different sections, but at the end of the day, we ended up coming down to 3 that scored higher than all the other ones, which was Wonders, Into Reading, and My View Literacy. When we then brought that back to the team and dug in more into evidence, we ended up finding that 2 of them stood out above the others, or above the third one. So we ended up eliminating McGraw-Hill Wonders because of a lot of the other research from different states. It was not meeting the high expectations as the 2 programs that we narrowed it to. When we got down to that point, we ended up digging in more for districts that had evidence of impact using these programs, especially urban districts. And we looked at what other states were saying, what the Reading League was saying. Of the 2 that we ended up narrowing to with Into Reading and My View Literacy, only one of them opted in to participate in the review with the Reading League, and so that was Into Reading. We did end up going through a lengthy process of looking at our needs. What was the HEX tool? What were all the things in there? Needs, fit, capacity, feasibility, and looked at all the different components of the programs, and they actually still came very, very closely tied, the actual programs. So we ended up going with the one that actually has evidence to work in districts like ours, and the one that participated in the studies. We thought it was a little bit strange that the other one didn't, so that was also part of it.
We also had our teachers that were on that literacy team soft pilot. We called it a soft pilot. So they piloted both resources, and it was interesting because going into it, we really felt like the team was leaning towards My View Literacy, but after the soft pilot, they all came out of it saying that no, they were preferred Into Reading. They thought it was much higher usability, so easier for teachers to pick up and use. And knowing we have so many new and transitional teachers, we knew that was critical.
Was the soft pilot done like with their classes?
Yes, with their
My
classes.
son's teacher was on there, so that's interesting.
Yeah, sure was. And they got feedback from the students during the pilot as well.
Awesome.
It was interesting because instead of having certain people pilot one program and other people pilot another, we gave them a unit of their choosing of both programs and allowed them to compare side by side and teach like 1 week at a time with each one, just to see which one felt the best for them, which one seemed like it had the best components to it. Into Reading stood out where My View Literacy, some of the feedback was we'd still have to supplement with other programs. So that was an interesting takeaway.
And Into Reading was a better fit for the IB school. The teachers at the IB school said that it just fits so much better with the IB model. So for us, that was also a strong point.
We also did an open house that invited teachers, community members, and students. But we had a pretty decent turnout, and both ended up rating relatively well, right next to each other. And certain things that we also saw that we liked with My View, people saw right away. But it was people who started digging in more ended up liking the other program a little bit. All right, so our recommendation is aligned with our commitment to provide each and every one of our students we serve with the best education possible. This program provides multiple resources, teacher's guides, classroom library books, instructional materials, read-aloud sets, sound wall cards, student response journals. It has multiple programs built in like Amira and Waggle. which actually, interestingly enough, having these would actually remove some of the things that we have currently going, right? Because we don't want students to be reliant on technology while they're in the classroom. So we have made the decision to step back from iReady while we're working on bringing in a new program, because we don't want kids in front of screens all the time, right? So Waggle is an adaptive personalized instruction piece that goes along with what they're learning in the classroom, that they can get some practice. Amira is really interesting because this is part of their program, and it is one of the more stronger rated evidence-based interventions out there currently, because it is an AI intervention. So students will read to the screen, they'll be going through things, and Amira will actually provide feedback, stop and correct, and develop lessons and things and practice based on how they're doing. We've talked to other districts who have utilized it, and we've had some teachers actually pilot it and try it out this year, and they really like it. So we're excited about that being part of it as well.
And ESSA, which is a research clearinghouse that we lean to for much of the research, it actually shows that Amira has a very strong effect size. So students that used Amira outperform students that didn't use Amira. Their numbers were 0.64, which in effect size is very high. So we're excited to see where that could go.
I have a question. So if Amira says that they're not retaining or they're having problems with it, it'll stop, and then the teacher can readdress what the problem possibly is?
So it adjusts right there, and it'll actually work with the students. This is when the teacher has already taught their lessons. Teacher is working on students on grade level content, maybe in a small group. So a student might be doing like some independent practice work. That's when they would hop on Amira, and it's like you're having a tutor right there with you who's giving you support.
Got it. Thank you.
The one thing that's really nice is with HMH's platform, they integrate NWA map data because they've purchased NWA. So they integrate that right into the dashboard with their reading program, with their common assessments, and with Amira. So you could see how students are doing with Amira. You could see how they're doing in Waggle right next to how they're doing in NWA right inside the platform, which is something that we did not have in the past with Journeys. One of the questions that was brought up is how literacy tutors would be involved with this. So literacy tutors will receive some in-district training around how to support the teacher with delivery of this, but essentially our tutors are more on the tier 3 side, where they're providing some individualized intervention around skills that students are below grade level, right? This program is meant to provide grade level instruction, and so they'd be supporting it in multiple ways, especially during literacy block time. However, they're not going to be specifically using this program. They'll be working with the teacher to find out what supports kids need, but they'll be using evidence-based interventions that we have for that time. All right, so our next steps, if we move forward with the adoption, is we're going to detail a rollout timeline. So Answer Reading has many, many components, right? And we know we don't want to just throw this all at everybody. So we are working really hard to have a good implementation plan, multiple years down the road, that we can say this was chunked out really well, felt good for teachers, and that they got all the support that they needed. We've already worked with all the vendors that we were talking to about what the training and coaching look like, and HMH hands down could support the professional learning much better than any of our other vendors. That was one of our main decision-making points too, is that we asked for, can you do coaching? Can you do grade level specific professional development, where you have multiple people coming in and they're like, yep, we can do everything. So it was really nice because it wouldn't stretch us that we have to provide the training on our end how to use the program, but we can actually learn alongside the teachers, and then we can help support it.
Another thing about their coaching is they offer 24/7 access to a coach, a live person, so a teacher can
be working along, find out that they're having some issues. They can go in and make an appointment with the coach during their planning time, and then they have a virtual meeting, and then they get the troubleshooting right on the spot. That's another nice feature.
All right, so I'm going to answer a couple of questions as I give this recommendation. But it is our recommendation from the team to move forward with the adoption of Into Reading from HMH at a cost of 3 years for materials and programs, so the startup, everything that a teacher would need, that students need, and 3 years worth of consumables. So like if students have workbooks that they work in, that it would be covered for 3 years at $498,186.52 using 35J grant. So 35J is an interesting grant because it not only looks at implementing research-based, evidence-based practices in literacy, you can purchase materials, you can purchase a comprehensive reading program like we're looking to do, which is interesting because you don't get that very often in some of these grants. And it can be used for providing professional development. The one thing is, if you use it to purchase materials and such, you just have to show that 100% of your teachers have been trained on it. We were allocated about $550,000 in that grant going towards this, which would not cover all of this. So the $196,400 is for the PD and coaching. We're looking to use ESSER for that. That would provide the coaching and the professional development that the teachers are required to have, and then we can use this near $500,000 to actually purchase a comprehensive program, which doesn't come around very often. So we're very excited about the opportunity. So at a total, it would be $694,586.52 from 35J and ESSER, where goods and materials would come from 35J, where services would come through ESSER. What questions can I
Is there a
answer?
timeline that you have to use that $550,000 grant?
I believe we have, well, so we need, it is already starting, right? So we've already put in for it, where it would go through next school year and to the end of the summer. I think it's September 30th the following year. So we would have a little bit over a school year to do the training. So if we didn't get everything that we needed in this year, we would still have the fall rollout to do that as well.
So it would be used up by September of 2026?
25.
25?
Yep.
Thank you.
No, you go ahead. Okay, I have a few questions. So, so how does the onboarding, and I just thought about this, for new teachers. So, do they get the 2-day training, and is that included, or will that be additional?
Yep, so new teachers, when they come in, are going to get new teacher orientation. So they already get 4 days with us to really learn everything Battle Creek.
Gotcha.
Right? However, all of our K-5 teachers are going to get 2 days, 2 full days of professional development with HMH, with Into Reading. So they'll be getting it alongside their peers at the same time. So they'll all be getting it for the first time before school starts.
And there's an additional layer of coaching coming in for principals and instructional coaches. And so then when our new teachers start, our instructional coaches will be kind of a train-the-trainer model. They'll be the experts, and they'll be able to train those new teachers and offer some side-by-side support for them in the classroom.
Yeah.
My other question, what's the cost of the current program? Is it Journeys?
Yeah, so Journeys, I don't know how much it cost initially.
Our
when we-
initial implementation,
Yes.
it was close to $1 million.
Yeah. So we had initially looked at holding aside $1 million through ESSER for this, and interestingly enough, a lot of our RFPs came in a lot lower, like 600,000 and under. So I think school districts don't have that kind of money to just, you know. But one thing with Journeys is we actually spend, I believe it's about $110,000 every year just on student consumables, just on like the student workbooks that they write in and things like that. So we wouldn't have any cost for 3 years. So thinking about that's 330,000 of the 498 would be what we would do each year just in getting the student consumables. And it rolls in Waggle and Amira into that cost, which essentially they have additional costs different years. So we have been asking, and it's pretty comparable to, what was it, about 150, the yearly renewal?
Yes.
So right now we're doing about 110, has none of the technology components to it. They're looking at about 150 for renewals, but we have not until 3 years beyond. So we wouldn't be looking at it until our 4th year of implementation where we have to spend that. So it's very comparable. HMH has been fantastic around that sort of thing. They're like, what can we do to help? Like, how can we figure out what works for you guys? So that's been very helpful.
And last question. So I'm curious, when you talked about how Journeys was determined to not be meeting expectations. So I'm wondering how long we were aware of that, and we're probably under a contract, wouldn't be my guess. But how much of that do you feel like contributes to our low literacy levels?
So it's interesting because Journeys is not a bad program. What we found is that we needed to supplement a lot of areas like foundational skills with phonics and phonemic awareness. At the lower grades, we provided letters training for our teachers, hoping that knowledge building and that training would help with some of that. This year we've been supplementing with a program called UFly, and we've been working with Midwest REL, which is from the International Education Sciences, right? IES. But they work with us for free. They work with a couple of our schools, our K2 buildings, coaching teachers around implementing these foundational skills practices, because what we found is a lot of the best practices at the time that Journeys was written wasn't nearly as good in areas of phonics and phonemic awareness. So instead of just throwing out the whole program, we were supplementing. So we were doing things like Hegarty and UFly and different interventions and programs. What we found is that we really think we needed something that's more comprehensive, that is all aligned, because we were doing too much of trying to plug the holes, right? But it wasn't in a place where I think it was so bad that we're like, we gotta get rid of this. I mean, it does some things really well. Things that it wasn't doing well, we were trying to find other ways to solve, knowing that it's a pretty significant expense to switch programs.
And the places that were saying it was failing to meet the expectations, it was precisely for that. It was because it didn't have the full science of reading integrated in there.
Gotcha. Good job on your process, though, for
Thank you.
testing it out.
I'm hoping to see major improvements.
Yes.
That was impressive.
Is there a way to link that ELA program comparison?
Yep, so it wasn't linked in the PDF that was sent, but I did provide the link. I'll make sure that you guys get it. Essentially what that does is and I apologize that it wasn't linked in there. I think when we switched it from a slide deck to a PDF, it lost it somehow. Because I tried it too, it wasn't working for anybody. But that has a lot of the numbers from the rubrics and the graphs and things, and from multiple other states. What I can tell you is that we spent a lot of time trying to make sure that we had the very best possible program and the best possible materials for our kids.
I'll give a little backstory with my terms on the board. It used to be, as I joined the board some 10 years ago, we were still using curriculum up to 20 to 25 years. And that was not good for our students. So to know that we can make a change from Journeys, because Journeys was adopted as I was on the board and we really liked it. It's just really practical and reasonable to have a new curriculum come forth. So thank you.
So I had a question. It was along the lines of yours, but you turned a different route than I was gonna go. So you said it's like about 10 years lifespan for these, and then you had to start supplementing. So are we planning on doing this for about 3 years and then re-examining, is it effective, so we don't fall into that rut where we're having to reevaluate or supplement? Like, is that the future plan on this one?
Yeah, so we've looked at how we can measure implementation. One of the things that's interesting with this is a literacy program, it's a resource, it's a tool, it's not our curriculum, right? So our curriculum is what we teach. This provides us with some really high quality materials to teach that, right? And so it is hard to say like this is the contributing factor because we teach our curriculum, we teach state standards. This is something that should make it really easy for us to do it, really engaging for kids, culturally relevant books. The thing is, we can't say that this is the main thing. However, as we've learned, we did reflect and say we should have done this a little bit earlier. We should have done this, we should have looked at this differently. And I think we're looking at how we could do better with it next time. So, I think we can plan on having some conversation here in 3 to 5 years to really start looking at.
I just want to make sure, because I think that was an important point, that the resource is not the reason for the low academic achievement. This is not the curriculum, it's the resource that helps teachers, and it's all about the implementation and the quality of the teaching that's happening in the classroom. We could purchase a whole other resource and get the same results, but the resource makes it easier. So we just want to make sure that we are very clear about that.
And when we hit the point about 5 or 6 years in last time, we had some kind of worldwide pandemic that really people weren't thinking about what our reading programs was going to be. So, that was about the time that we'd probably start digging in a little bit more, and that set us back.
That was the resource as a parent at home, so.
Absolutely.
That's a big deal.
What other questions?
You said during your presentation we're putting on hold iReady. So what's happening with iReady? Are we continuing with that? Are we getting rid of it? Does the contract end? What's going on?
So we do a yearly contract with them right now. I'll be honest, I don't think that we have, and we've talked about it with our teaching and learning services team. We've talked with teachers and principals. It's not being used to the level that we want it to be used. To get the results that it can get. At times it's being used as something that students go on and they just practice, and the teachers might not be using it for anything. We've invested in some training this year for teachers, and there are things that they're like, oh, I didn't even know it could do that. And we've had this for years. And so with some of the program, with Amira and Waggle being part of this, we don't want to have too many programs. We want it to be aligned. We want it to be right there. It may be something that we go back to at some point down the road because it is a good program. It's a good resource for kids. We just know that implementing a new literacy resource is going to be hard enough as it is, right? Like it's going to be new learning. To ask teachers now to implement something that they've been using differently is adding on more for teachers, and we didn't want to do that at this time.
So I think with just that being said, because I remember when we renewed iReady last time, we talked about having the people who are getting taught then teach other people, so it continues down the line. And I know you said that with this program too, so I guess I just want to make sure that we're really doing that, because if we just said that, some people were like, oh, I didn't know this could do that or whatnot, then I don't know how effective the teaching, whatever that phrase is called, where...
Train the trainer.
Thank you, train the trainer. Yes.
I think what we found is, looking back, is that we trained a lot of people highly years ago, and we had a lot of turnover. And then we've been offering training opportunities, but it's individual schools that have taken those. And this year we actually said we want everyone to go back in and get some training again. And what we found is most of our teachers that were newer in the last couple of years are the ones that weren't sure how to use it fully. And what we're looking for is not having 50 arrows pointing in different directions. We want to really align. I would rather have the right things than too many things that you can't do well. Right, and so we're trying to get the just right things and limit a little bit, and it may not be popular. Teachers might not be happy if we don't go with iReady next year, right? But at the same point, like, if there is too much that teachers are being asked to do, they're not going to be able to teach effectively. So,
And as a part of our implementation plan, we are looking at how we can support new teachers that come in over the next 3 years. So our in-house coaching, of course, but then also how can HMH support us? Because we didn't have that before. We didn't have a plan that said every year as we bring in new people that there would be professional development specifically for them.
That's great news, especially with the Grow Your Own program. We're gonna hopefully be getting more teachers, so.
Any other questions?
I have a comment, totally unrelated to this, but kudos to Teresa for the great lead time you gave for the summer school. Like, we got our letters weeks in advance, so that was really nice.
Great.
I just wanted to give you that kudos while I was thinking about it.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
yep. And I just want to say, even though I presented most of it today, these two put in most of the work. They put hours and hours of work in, so thank you.
Any other questions, comments, or complaints?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving right along. We'll move down to police liaison agreements. Dr. Monique Cheeks.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I am presenting to you this evening the 24-25 police liaison contract for the 24-25 school year, but to begin this summer. So our police liaison is a longstanding partnership that we've had with BCPD over the years, which has helped to foster positive relationships with law enforcement, students, family, staff, and the community. The police liaison officer also supports ensuring heightened security measures and also has been a district level support as well. So for the most part, your police liaison is staffed at Battle Creek Central. That is their base, but they have offered a tremendous amount of support district-wide and in all of our school buildings with the co-creation of policies and procedures for safety and security, threat assessment lead, and being involved in that, a lot of wellness visits this year. We hope for a lot of wellness visits this summer as well. The contract for this year to include the summer is $124,668,000.
Any questions for Dr. Cheeks?
I just have one question. Completely supportive of this. I think we need more. I think we talked about that before. More of that. Not in the realm of like policing our students, right? But security and safety. So I'm very supportive of that. There was something in here that said, identify students who have antisocial attitudes and who tend to disrupt the learning environment. Identify and then what? So what happens after identification?
Assessments.
Okay.
So we go through an assessment process, and then there's interventions put in place. So if the officer identifies a student, then for the most part, then it is handed over to either building, behavioral support, or student services to begin the support process.
I guess I like the fact that the contract would start this summer. That I think that's beneficial because that's kind of lead time into the school year, and that's good for kids to build relationships and be a support for what we're trying to increase attendance rates, whatever might be of a concern that needs to be addressed. So good job at getting this to start first of the summer.
Absolutely.
Any other comments? Yes, Trustee Fulbright.
This isn't a question really, but I'm curious to see what it would be like to have 2 liaison officers. I know other districts have more than one, and Officer Peary is such a great asset. What would it be like to have one at the high school and one at one of the middle schools? Or in 2025, Northwestern will be K through 8, so that's going to be even more expansion. Just something maybe we could think about in the future.
We'll talk more about that next week when we talk about budget.
Okay.
Anything else?
We used to have 2
Yes.
a while ago.
There was one stationed at Northwestern, and we had a support at Anjay Kellogg as well. So we had 3 at one point.
What happened? But was it budget-wise or?
Budget, yes, heavily.
Trustee Pritchett?
Thank you. I'm just gonna say, I say this every year, I know, but I fundamentally disagree with having this position farmed out to the city, to the police department. I really wish we'd examine having this as an in-house employee. I just don't agree with having police department official presence on schools. I know that the current person is amazing. I know Officer Perry's great. Nothing against him or anyone. I've had this job in the past. I mean, for 7 years now, I voted no on this because I believe it should be in-house. I continue to do so.
Anything else? Thank you, Dr. Chicks.
Thank you.
Okay, moving down.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just for clarification, this does not include Springfield.
Correct.
Yeah, just want to make that clear to everyone.
Springfield is covered under the county
County,
sheriff's
yes.
department.
So does that mean if we needed support at Springfield, we could not utilize Officer Perry?
Normally, the sheriff's department responds.
For in-person response. Now, if there's support that's needed, then we're able to use the advice of our liaison officer for that.
I think you also have an option to work something out where he, liaison just happens to be but you can have him be deputized, so to speak, and then if we had a second officer, that would be more appropriate for both of them. But that's something they can work out between the chief and what is the person that's over the county?
County, the deputy sheriff.
Thank you.
They do have mutual, what's called mutual agreement. So if something was to happen, mutual agreement allows our officers to assist.
They've always been covered.
And they have covered, yeah.
And
I just wanted to.
I don't want to take it off, but I am curious about Nathan's point historically. Is there a reason why it hasn't been an employee and why we use the Battle Creek Police Department?
Well,
I would say we're not equipped, trained, or the level of training, professional, that would put us in the business of security, and we just aren't there yet. We don't have the internal capacity.
And even if we did, so Charlie, I'm thinking of like other districts, they have retired officers as a security director, but they still have police officers assigned because it helps with the community policing and then it helps with those relationships. They're not there to implement discipline. Like, that is not the liaison's job. But that's why you have other people in the school with that role. So it's a very distinct role. It's relationship building and resource versus they're here to like hem children up or whatever, right? So
I'm gonna take it back even further. I didn't want to belabor this. I want to keep moving. But we actually, prior to having liaisons, school liaison officers, if you go back to when we were in school, we actually had.
We had the black condos.
We had, right, hall monitors. And we actually had, trying to think of his name. Just,
Rocho?
yeah, thank you. So we, at one point in time, Battle Creek, we didn't do that. You guys were little or were here.
Yeah.
We were at school. Henceforth, the involvement is because of everything that started to happen. If we were to go into the business, so to speak, we have no authority. If something was to happen, and I give this speech every year, he gives that one, I give this one. If something was to happen, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
If something was to happen, a school shooting or some type of emergency, that in-person security has no authority to take any action whatsoever. And what we don't want to end up is what I see happening in some other districts who have just gone crazy. They've authorized teachers to have guns. You don't want that to happen. So if you go into the security business, and if it's all about protecting kids,
And staff.
and security and staff, protecting, period. You want the person there who has the authority. You're not there for discipline. I know I did the job. I was the one when I talked about the second liaison officer. That was me. That's not what this position is for. So it's a long history, which is why I brought up Springfield, because I'm concerned about Springfield. But that's another subject which we will address. So, yes, we do need, you need police officers.
And I'd offer a friendly amendment that, when I saw that, we call it police liaison, but we really don't. It's a school resource officer, and there are two different things, right? And so we probably should change our recommendation to say SRO, because it's a school resource officer, which is, has a different role of building relationships and intervention as opposed to being a police liaison. So I appreciate that, and thank you for that reminder. As we move forward, we want to use the right language.
I have a point of clarification. You say that, let's say we got Northwestern merging with Springfield, and Valley View is out there. So if something was to happen in our Springfield building, our liaison officer would not be able to handle it, the sheriff would?
We could, yeah, the county, we call the county officer to take care of that. Yeah, that's who's designated to that space, and they've always shown up and taken care of those two buildings one at a time.
Thank you. Okay. Now the discussion, state of the district, Superintendent Dr. Kimberly Carter.
Yeah, so I want to acknowledge that we have an amazing relationship with some evaluators, and they have been crunching the numbers all the way up until we posted the board packet. So there were some, they got the rest of the NWEA data a little bit after we posted the packet. So in front of you, you have a revised report because some of the information was still being crunched right up to that date. Today is about presenting the information and then allowing the space for questions and follow-up questions that we can always circle back on to provide more information, right? So, thank you. Let's see if this works. Oh, he said turn it on first.
Oh, there we go.
All right. So our evaluation partners, we work with multiple evaluation partners to collaboratively assess the impact of our transformation efforts. Right now, we are working with the American Institute of Research, the Upjohn Institute, and Grand Valley State University's Center for Philanthropy. All of them taking different aspects of our district transformation and running them through the impact test. What is the outcome, right? What are the metrics that are showing whether or not we're getting a return on our investment and improving the outcomes in the district? So this is based on phase 2 of the district transformation. Phase 1 was the $51 million investment for 5 years, which actually went 6 years. And now we're into phase 2, where we believe we've put the conditions, we focused a lot on the conditions for success. We opened 3 different innovation centers. We put a lot of focus and effort into developing high school career academies. So it was a lot of program that were put into place. In this second phase, we are really focusing in on academic achievement, hence the adoption of new reading curriculum, and you will see other things coming forward in that space. So the framework by which they are reviewing our district impact is focused on professional learning, high-performing teachers is one of our goals, supportive human resources, making sure that there are pathways to college access, high-quality instruction, high-performing leaders, healthy culture and climate, and early learning support. Those are the areas that we believe if we focus intentionally on, we'll get high and equitable student outcomes over time. Remember, this is a work session, so you don't have to wait till the end to ask questions. This is not a formal presentation. I want to make sure that we're having a discussion as we go.
So I did have one.
Yes.
So this is phase 2.
Yes.
When did we start phase 2? Or are we starting it
This year.
This year?
Yeah. This is the beginning of phase 2. So thank you for that question. Right? This slide just talks about some of the sources of information, the data that was collected to create a picture of impact. So our vision is clear. We want 100% success for every Bearcat. And I will say that the theme of this presentation is that we are making progress, but we're not where we want to be. So we anchored our presentation today on our 6 goals for greatness. And as you know, we're launching a new strategic plan in July. And so we want to make sure that these remain the right goals, or if there are opportunities for us to make some shifts. So we're going to work our way backwards. We have made significant improvements to our facilities, technology, creating safe and welcoming environments for our students. That's seen in some of our key celebrations, like the AV room, the fact that we don't have to have our computers in front of us and be on Zoom. We installed an OEC generator to upgrade that facility. Consistent exterior landscaping is now done. Many can remember the time where there were lots of complaints about our landscaping, and now that is looking much better. CW Post is our celebration and the beautiful field and the track. Our new scoreboard, thanks to the work of Lauren Granger and his bringing in additional resources. All of our fountains in the school drinking have been switched over to bottle filling stations in every single building. That was a heavy lift for our team. The Fremont gym floor has been replaced this year, and significant Northwestern and Springfield upgrades have occurred. We also have continued with the HVAC upgrades across the district. So those are just a few of the celebrations. And I don't know why they use that picture. I'm going to have to get named.
I have a picture.
So what are some of the lessons we learned? That investing in infrastructure pays off, because we know that quality facilities and technology enhance the learning experience, but we also learned that planning is essential. And so a comprehensive infrastructure plan is crucial for long-term success.
With that, are we saying like we're going to be intentional about making sure stuff doesn't fall in disrepair? Is that what that means?
Yes. So having a long-term plan, like we're going to do this year, this next year. And so in July, we will be talking about the master plan, because that may have fallen off your radar, but they have done that work. It's a huge binder that they'll be bringing forward in July. We've been just putting the crossing T's and dotting I's to make sure the data in it is correct, but that will inform the strategic plan and this long-range infrastructure plan. So where do we go? Just like I said, we're going to develop that comprehensive plan and ensure that our facilities meet the highest standards. And we're going to leverage partnerships. Collaborating with community organizations and vendors will provide the additional resources and support we need. Our facilities need a lot more work than our budget can handle. And so we have really old buildings, right? And as we look at our budget, it can't handle the number of repairs that are needed. And so we're going to have conversations about what are some innovative ways that we can bring in more revenue to support this. We bring in about $1.5 million a year in the sinking fund, but our expenses exceed that. So we want to think creatively about what more we can do. Okay. Active community partnerships is goal 5. Our community partnerships have grown stronger. We have hundreds of partners now. And when I say hundreds, I mean more than 100 partners that show up on a regular basis to help us. They're providing vital support for our students and families. Programs like Young Men of Potential and Reading Buddies have made a significant impact. So what are some key celebrations? When we look at our partnership with communities and schools, 101 students received Tier 1 and Tier 2 supports. What that looks like is having life social skills training, basic needs such as food and clothing being provided, attendance outreach, and academic assistance are a part of those supports. We connected families to resources and support through more than 35 local partnerships that were just with communities and schools. And they helped in the areas of academics, behavioral mental health, college career readiness, health and wellness, and basic needs. We also partnered with the Rec Center. STAR Resilience and Empowerment is what that stands for. It's a trauma-informed program that teaches social-emotional skills, helps students catch up on schoolwork, and receive individualized support for experienced educators. So students who were participated in STAR have exceeded the level of the schools to provide intervention and support. So they were your top tier students who needed behavior replacement, right, in order to be successful in the general education space. And so they would go to STAR to get that support and retraining to come back to the schools to be more successful. 40 students participated in that program. 68% of them graduated successfully. The number is 27, and 11 are still actively participating so that they can achieve the skills necessary to be successful in school.
I really like that data that says 40 of our students participated. When those 27 graduate, are they still mentored by the rec program, or is there a continued eye on them for furthering the relationship that had been started?
So there is a, I would call a warm handoff to the behavior interventionists that are in the schools, as well as the other trauma-informed team members, to make sure that they sustain that success, and REC does continue to check in on them. But there is a transition, right? We want to transition it back to the school staff to be supported.
Sure.
Dr. Cheeks, would you add anything else?
That's exactly correct. They actually go through a resilience coach from STAR, goes to the school and transitions the students back in. So they help with those replacement behaviors, coach the staff through what they've been working on at the program, and then they do go hands off and allow the school to.
And with the remaining 11, I know 2 have moved, will the remaining 11 be able to further their efforts?
Yeah, some of them are actually going to attend the summer rec program that will be hosted in Albion. So they'll actually go out to that campus and receive some more intentional work throughout the summer as well.
Thank you.
Grace Health is an amazing partner for Battle Creek Public Schools. They had nearly 200 students that received mental health counseling right inside our school buildings. I want to just say how amazing that is to reduce the barrier of access of people having to go find services. We had 200 students who had on-campus resources and access to support because of our partnership with Grace Health. And so I really highlight and celebrate that. We only had 12 on a waiting list, which is a significant improvement from last year. And they continue to build access to care. Services will continue to be available in those centers even during the summer hours, plus an additional middle school counselor is being moved to Battle Creek Central to serve middle high schoolers during Bearcat Blast.
I'm amazed at that 200 students, because when I attend the advisory committee meetings, that's never mentioned at all. And I was concerned that maybe one of the counselors only had a caseload of 25 students because they were required to stay at that level, and then that waiting list grows. But I guess how was it reported that the 200 students got that mental health? Was it just a one visit, or was it numerous visits to support the students?
So that's 200 individual students that receive mental, and remember we have Grace Health at all of our secondary. So it's across Springfield, Battle Creek Central, right? That included that. I hope, did that answer your question or more?
Well, I'm amazed at that 200 number, because when I have been listening to the staff at these quarterly meetings that I attend, they have never said that has been a positive for us, because that is exciting, that is beneficial, and I want it to be that reality, because that's so important to the health of our struggling students. And if they feel comfortable going to the student health centers, I think that's even viable. So I would just hope that our Grace Health staff really celebrates that. And I'm happy to see this, but I was just amazed at that high number.
And I also want to remind you that caseloads can shift, so they can have 25 at a time, but kids will cycle on and cycle off depending upon their level of need. So that's how they get to that number as well. So when we think about our family and community engagement coordinator, they've been doing a lot of great work. 11 district parent community engagement events have been held. We had 3 key communicator meetings with over 80 participants throughout the year, which is a significant increase. We were seeing maybe 5 or 6, and now we've had to actually move. We had to leave this room and go to the Math and Science Center because we had too many people, well, not too many. We had an increase, which is a great problem to have. 3 power caregiver meetings, 2 run by parents. And Northwestern had a fish fry that was a huge success.
Yes.
And we had an amazing seed award ceremony just this past week with 34 award recipients from the 23-24. So we continue to create opportunities. This summer, as we look forward, we will be doing home visits into looking at our targeted attendance areas and continuing to work with the community and creating a major partnership with the fatherhood group to continue to spread how we access or have access to families. Yep.
Will we, at some point, can we dig into maybe just hear from Mariama, because we haven't had a chance to, but about the parent and community engagement strategy is so important, right? And I'm curious about, like, with the engagement piece beyond, like, the attendance, like, do we have a continuum, like, attendance to, like, they're checking, what is it that we use to check attendance, or like your student Skyward. You know, this many parents now are checking Skyward at least once a week. Now they're checking it daily. Like, so establishing some what we want to see in terms of parenting as much as we can, right? So I think, like, it would be helpful to know how do we want parent engagement to shape the child's education, right? And like maybe it's some sessions on, because some parents don't necessarily know how that makes a difference, right? So I would love to dig more into this.
What were some of the topics that were of those 11 events?
So most of those were focused on how to support your child in school.
Okay.
Yes. Now, but what I heard you say is, what's the data on how their engagement is shifting?
Yes.
And I'm not certain that we can say how many maybe we could just say how many parents are accessing Skyward. I don't know.
And that's just an example. Maybe it's
Yeah.
other examples of
So the team is listening as well as what are some other metrics that could tell us what's shifting parents
as a result of coming to these engagement meetings. How is that impacting this?
I also think that this is a great opportunity to think about when we start the new strategic plan process, what is it that we want to have a focus on, right? It's the next level of the work.
The power caregiver meetings, what did they consist of? Were they different than the parent community engagement events?
So yes, those are events. That would include the carnivals, the just different events. But the power parent, they're also called power parent. I think somebody changed power caregiver just because. But power parent meetings are really about, the word I'm looking for, skill development and advocacy, empowerment. That's the word I'm looking for. Empowering parents to be engaged in the school, to take ownership of some of the school processes and practices.
Thank you.
Okay. And those are run by our family and community engagement coordinator at the district level. Now, what I also want to be clear about is this is district level family and community engagement, which is separate and apart from what each individual building is doing.
Right.
Okay? Because that would be like 200 more slides. So what do we learn? Or confirmed, I would say, is community involvement is powerful. Engaging the community leads to better support and outcomes for students, and building trust takes time. Ongoing dialogue and engagement are essential for building trust. So as we look ahead, we're going to continue to strengthen our partnerships, especially as it relates to supporting student achievement and enhancing our marketing and outreach. By expanding our marketing efforts will help increase enrollment and community involvement.
So can I want to poke at the community involvement piece a little bit more. So marketing's fine, but one thing I think is difficult is like knowing what's going on at the various schools. So it would be great if we focus on like even like integrate something as simple as integrating the athletic website into the regular school website, so you'll know at least like what athletic events are going on. Because if you're thinking about community, if you're not in one of these partnerships and you're just like, you just live here and your class is 66, that's my dad's class, and they're like diehard and they want to go to a game, like how do they find out what games are going on? Like do we go back to old school printing the pamphlet for fall sports and people would have their little things at different schools or whatever? Like I just think we need to be more intentional about streamlining our information and making it accessible versus you have to go to this site or you have to do this and you got to be on this PTO's email list or whatever, just so we can know what stuff to go to as a community.
I'm going to agree, because even as superintendent, I don't know half the stuff that is happening. And it is very frustrating to know at the last minute that, oh, something's happening at such and such. So we've tested different strategies and we will continue to get better at that, because myself, I want to be more visible, but you got to know that it's happening. And so we're going to test some other strategies to get to
and
that
let's
point.
not rely on Facebook, because though I have an account, I don't get on it that often, so let's be mindful that that's not the answer either.
So we will take that at the top of the list, because
All right, awesome.
I have a pet peeve about that as well. So, goal 4, effective and efficient use of resources. Our financial health is strong with a balanced budget and increased revenue. We've managed our resources efficiently, ensuring that funds are directed towards our academic goals. We've prioritized our spending in a way that continued focus on a zero-based budgeting process. And we take advantage every time a grant comes out. Our team is perfectly positioned to go after the dollars so that we can make sure that we're supporting our students. This year, we received a CIS ESSER grant, $226,000. That's going to be used to fund things like a parent engagement carnival this summer, is something that we're looking forward to planning. As well as it's supporting keeping CIS in some of the roles that we have. 35J is what we just talked about. It's adopting our curriculum. That is huge for us, because it's $500,000 that we didn't have to find in the general fund. We were top in the application process for adult education, so we can continue a strong adult ed program. And we received $576,000 for Grow Your Own, which is helping us build community investment in our teacher field. Serial City Science this year is projecting a profit. Why that's important is that the Serial City Science is a business that helps support Battle Creek Area Math and Science Center and the Outdoor Education Center. And the pandemic hit it hard like other businesses. And so to be projecting a profit is a huge celebration, and thank you to that team.
I want to interject on this one here. The Serial City Science. A lot of our community members did not have a clue what that building represented. So it's being talked about now within the community.
And part of that, and I will say here and publicly, is we own and operate Serial City Print Shop. So if you know people who need printing, we want to make sure that we start using that, because the profits from that support our ability to continue the Outdoor Education Center as well as the Math and Science Center. I'm gonna talk a lot more about Serial City Science and that profit at our budget meeting, because there are some significant understandings that most people don't have, that I need us to go deep on, and for the board to really understand the significance of Serial City Science.
So does the print shop print all projects or just educational projects?
All projects.
I didn't realize that even, so, yeah. Okay.
Great.
Yep, see?
I didn't know that until her came in with cards and was handing them out, and I'm like, you need to give these to all the churches.
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
I gave it to my church, and they're using it
Yes.
for a print job we have,
Single
so.
homes and all.
Yeah.
Everything. So, and thank you to her for lifting that up and making that more widely known.
Right.
So, yeah. And then we received a My Kids Back on Track grant, 23G, for $565,000, and I literally can't remember what we're using that one for.
Literacy tutors and graduation specialists.
Yes. So 23G was pandemic response funds to support us with additional strategies for kids, so tutors and graduation specialists. Another celebration is that our enrollment has stabilized. The district, since the beginning of the transformation, even as compared to other districts where they continue to decline, we're beginning to at least stabilize. The next goal is to increase, right? Because the only way to increase revenue is to increase enrollment outside of grants. Grants are soft funding. When the grant goes away, the people go away. And so we want to focus on the more hard dollars coming in.
So that it's good to see it stabilizing and improving. And I would like us to also have one on graduation rates. The enrollment is important, and I think one of the most important measures of success for us as a district is how many are graduating. So, so I would like to see that too, like our trends. That would be helpful.
Hey, I'd also be curious as time goes on, especially to see another line there for when Barricade Advantage was announced and how that might affect, especially, kindergarten, elementary enrollments and parents that are, hopefully choosing BCPS career along for their kids now. I'd be curious to see if there's like a tipping point there as well as time goes on. I would imagine so, but I'd like to see that as it goes on to get reports on that.
Appreciate that. So, Quita, if you will just please note for me a graph on graduation rates as well as a graph on when the Bearcat Advantage was. And that we'll see the impact of a little bit later, but we'll track it from here going. And Upjohn Institute, that's their work right now, is to track the impact of the Bearcat Advantage. Okay? Because we have to report that to the W.K. Kellogg Foundation.
Unrelated question, can we stop the air conditioning or not cold?
Cold. Me and Charlie were
Oh, I'm here like this. I'm sitting over here wondering, like, okay.
I am cold.
It's not even on?
No, I didn't think it was.
You're having a power surge.
Yes.
One question.
Dress in layers.
One question, with the temporary closure of Northwestern and the students moving around, I would be curious to know if we have a loss from the time now until next year compared to where we are.
So we will look at this every year. We'll look at our enrollment numbers every single year to determine, are we going up or down? Where are we?
Are you curious in like the majority of the middle school?
Yeah, not necessarily, and it's not necessarily a loss, it's just that because we have this temporary shift.
So is the question, are we losing at specific grade levels, or what impact does the shift have on overall enrollment?
Say we have those kids that would normally, we got kids that went to Northwestern, and now we have most of them going to Ann Jay and Springfield. And then we have some Springfield parents who are out there that are concerned because of the shift. And I would like to know.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, we will be looking at that, and we will see the impact of that next year.
And I was excited to see that BC STEM is going to be at full capacity too. When attending the Fremont graduation for our fifth graders, they asked them to, or they had cords that said they would be attending the BC STEM school next year, and that is so wonderful.
This is not necessarily about this specifically, but whenever I the discussion about enrollment, from a policy perspective, I'm curious, like what's happening at the state level? Because the fact that we have to attach our funding to enrollment, just, and how all that works, and, you know, all the inequities involved in like housing and all of that. Like, and so I'm curious what's happening at the state level. There was something I saw recently. But also, what's our involvement in that? Like, what's our civic engagement now that we have you with RASBA, right? But like, I'm curious about like, how do we keep working toward detaching enrollment with funding, with housing values, you know what I mean? So, because I feel like that's why enrollment is important, but I think the focus on that is because we're, you know, the survival piece of it, where we really want to focus on, like, we want to get students. We don't want to just have them here. We want them to graduate and to learn, so.
And the unfortunate part is you can't do that in the absence of having good revenue streams, right?
Definitely,
so
definitely.
Revenue is tied to enrollment, to your point. There is a movement in the state around smarter school funding that's attached to need, not just property values. And so the MASB, MASA, all of the leading organizations are working on that, but it's a heavy lift, and we got to just keep getting in the ear of our legislators to say, hey, under-resourced students need more resources. And so we need ways. Now, how are they doing that? That's why you have all these what's called categoricals. And so all those little grants that we're going after, instead of just giving it straight to the foundation allowance, right now we get about $9,000 per student, plus or minus. And then you got to go for this little grant and this little grant. What we would prefer a legislative action is to just put it in the foundation allowance, so that it has more flexibility and we can do the work that's needed for kids. So let's keep championing that and getting in people's ear around smarter school funding. There's a lot of work, but I think it's a heavy lift.
Yeah.
Do I see it changing anytime soon?
That might be a way to leverage like your power parent groups too, though, and have them like write a state legislator or whatever, or using our MASB liaison. They were talking about that in one of our sessions about how we can like mobilize people to send stuff. And Rep. Hasma, I think, is on the education committee if he doesn't chair it, and he'd be at everything. So that might be an opportunity to like in one of those power parent meetings give them like a template, give them some kind of template, and they could just mail it to and like send. That could be an idea of engagement too.
I remember one time we talked about a legislative action group being formed by boards, and maybe that's the purpose of the united boards of this area, that we could, like, that be the purpose of legislative collective actions and advocacy.
Awesome.
Luckily, our first joint board meeting is all about that. So,
That for the agenda?
yeah.
So,
Zoom in.
why it's important to have a healthy fund balance is because we don't want to get into the business of cutting, right? And it sets us up for success. So what have we learned? That strategic resource allocation works. Focused spending on academic programs leads to better outcomes. Flexibility is necessary. We must remain adaptable to meet changing needs and priorities. Every year we get a new group of students. These are not cars. These are not widgets. Every year you have to adjust and adapt, and our funding and the way we allocate money has to change every year. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. Looking ahead, we're going to continue our strategic spending. We'll maintain our focus on allocating resources where they are most needed to support student achievement, and we'll continue to explore innovations. We'll look at innovative ways to optimize our budget and resources as several grant-based funding sources are beginning to sunset. And that's an important point. Goal 3, human capital. Our recruitment efforts have been successful, and we've welcomed many new teachers and support staff into our district. The student teacher pipeline program has been particularly effective. We are continuing to recruit, retain, and develop premier staff as a key point for this strategy. So what are we celebrating? We have 52 certified classroom specials teachers hired this year. We hired 28 transitional teachers, 6 certified SPED teachers, and we attended 5 Michigan College Career Fairs, leaving only 6 openings this year. So that is a huge celebration. We had a charge by the board to continue to diversify our applicant pool, and so to do that, we participated in the Midwest Black Male Educator Summit that was hosted by Cincinnati Public Schools. Our team went to Florida A&M. They've gone to Bowling Green.
I didn't know I couldn't go.
They invited me. We tried to get her to go. MDE Virtual Education Workforce Fair. We've gone to Howard University. We, not me. I wanted to go but couldn't. And we took a team to the Ohio Alliance of Black School Educators Midwest Regional Conference. So we will continue.
How is this paying out? Like, what are the numbers we have as far as?
So we still have work to do. We have hired more, most of which has been 28 transitional teachers from the community. These are, our executive director of HR has resulted from that. So some of our key positions have resulted from this, but our teachers, we're still struggling to get people to move to Michigan.
Okay.
Let's be real about that.
So yeah, going to even Cincinnati, Ohio,
Yes.
pretty close places. They're not wanting to.
Yeah, so still diversifying and trying, but our numbers still haven't shifted yet.
But the homegrown traditional seems to be doing much better.
Absolutely. So we have improvements, but it's not where I want it to be yet.
And this was your first year going to all of those too, right?
Takes, yeah.
You have to keep going.
People see that, they get used to it, adjust it.
Let me tell you, number one thing that we should celebrate is Alexis.
That's in my notes. In my notes, they are rocking out.
And she is rocking it out and bringing in, she's sourcing talent proactively rather than the post and pray strategy. So she goes after folks and introduces them to Battle Creek and gives them a reason to move. And so yes, she's been successful, and there's still more work to be done. So that was
But to support her in her efforts is just really practical, because this district has had the initiative to go nationwide for their teaching staff. And that's very beneficial for our community as well as our students.
So people are texting me in the middle of this and want me to tell you that we've seen high activity from the Fort Wayne area that has resulted in some hires. Okay.
Good answer. He's listening.
Right, so they're watching. So as it results to retention, over the years, AIR has asked the same questions and been doing this to see if they can see changes. So in these studies, 92% of the early career teachers see themselves in BCPS in 2 years, which is up from 67%. 86% for those teachers who have been with us 4 to 9 years, and 83% for 10+ years. In the realm of education, those are really good numbers that they see themselves staying. Incentives are influencing our teachers' choices to stay, so then it's the why. And the things that are having the most impact are the paid professional development, our tuition reimbursement program, and our housing incentive, which is now at 40%, up from 17% in 2022.
Do you know if it tested like the salary increase?
It
No,
did
that probably
not
was old.
this,
Yeah,
because
okay.
that's new.
Got it.
85% of our teachers say they're proud to work for BCPS, which is up from 78% in 2022. Our GVSU partnership, over the last 5 years, BCPS has hired 12 GVSU interns upon completion of their STP program. And our early career teaching mentoring program, those who are being mentored as a part of our partnership with Grand Valley State University, 83% of them have remained in the ECT program because they feel supported and have what they need to continue in teaching. So what are some additional key celebrations? 102 staff members participated in 882 Transformational Teacher Institute courses. That's the professional development that they have access to. 58% of the teachers said that they learned something that changed their teaching, which is up from 31%. 67% learned something that changed their teaching during meetings. For the first one was district provided PD. Second one is during meetings. That's up from 36%. And we asked about our professional learning communities, and 71% said that those changed their teaching, which is up from 35% in 2022. Yep.
Comment. So it would be helpful, and this is something I think would be helpful just even in terms of us approving the different professional development opportunities, is to see a professional development strategy or plan so that we, sometimes like we get the request and I'm like, okay, so is it like we're attending this thing, or is it like building a competency in a particular area so that like it's more targeted and not kind of like, scattered? And it could be a strategy, I just don't know what it looks like. So I think it would be helpful if we could see like what are we aiming for specifically in instruction. So, if we're sending folks to the black male thing that they had went to, if that's our focus area, what other things are we wrapping around that to build the skill set and professional, just because that's how we learn, right? We learn it over and over again and then we have some practice at it, but it would be helpful to see that.
Say more about that.
So, like, the right way to say it is that, so it doesn't feel like we're throwing spaghetti on the wall.
So,
like, I want to learn this today, right? Yeah. Like, it feels like we're like, just like we do with our students,
Fragment.
right? Yes, like if we're learning addition, there are different ways we're going to continue to repeat the education and professional development around addition so you can build the competency rather than you go to this one workshop today and I practice it in the classroom, but there's no sort of like, it's not comprehensive.
So I would just answer that by saying all of our professional development is aimed at putting more tools in your toolbox. Right. So it won't always be as comprehensive as circular or connected, but it's, right, I'm going to get you more strategies for dealing with urban students. That's the core of the professional development, like going to the Black Boys.
Right, right.
So all of our PD should be tied back to the strategic plan of improving academic outcomes for students and giving you tools in your toolbox.
Right.
Now, one of the things that we're implementing moving forward is that every time you go to a PD, you got to tell us what actually is going to shift as a result of this. And I just asked us to now put that on the board report. So in July, they're going to come forward and say, what did you get from the Black Boys and Men Symposium? Don't just go, but right, tell us what you're going to do with the information you gave. So I hope that would be helpful.
Yes.
In showing that connection.
Yes.
Are you
that's
wanting
helpful.
to see a list of the topics that teachers have choices for?
I think I'm just, and to be honest, this is also in like in our board trainings, our MASBA trainings. It talks about like professional development plans and ensuring the districts have good.
Because I would think our teachers set a goal for themselves as they begin the school year.
Yes.
And they might list items of PD that they want to make sure they have a chance to attend.
Right. Yes. So I think ultimately what I'm
Presenting the
sure that it
PLP.
sticks.
And Teresa, so we have what's called the professional learning plan.
Yeah.
We call it the PLP, but showing you what the PLP is for the entire district. Okay. We'll do a report in the fall, the PLP for the fall. Lessons learned. Retention is critical. Attracting talent is only part of the equation. Retaining that talent is equally important. Right?
I have a rap thing: retain, recruit, retain.
Yes. That was your rap.
Is that what you said? A rap?
Okay.
We are famous with our excellent quality PD.
Yes.
And we want to have that PD stay with us. Those PD trained instructors have to stay with us.
And professional development is vital. Ongoing training and development are necessary to maintain high standards. So, focus on retention. We're going to enhance our retention strategies by continuing to provide competitive pay, meaningful incentives, and career development opportunities. We'll expand our professional development, offering differentiated and effective professional development, which will remain a cornerstone of our strategy. Healthy organizational culture, creating a nurturing and transparent organizational culture remains a priority. We've made strides in improving teacher retention and engagement, but there's still more work to be done. So, attendance. It's beginning to rebound post-pandemic. While the district on the whole saw only a 1% decrease in chronic absenteeism, several schools saw significant improvements. And we wanted to shout out and celebrate those schools that were continuing to move the needle for kids. The average daily attendance has increased steadily, albeit incrementally over the past 3 years at BCC, Springfield, Northwestern, and BC STEM. While most elementary schools the average daily attendance has declined since 21-22, nearly all saw incremental improvements this year. The overall message in this is we've made some progress, but really is still stagnant, and that's a nationwide issue that we have thrown a lot of resources and money, and we'll continue to work on that. But right now, I need the community's help.
Well, and I think when we were talking about topics for the shared board, that was something that all the superintendents shared at the chronic absenteeism issue at the Chambers event. So that could be something that we address as a community. The other thing I was wondering is for those that had improvements, what's working? So what did they do? We do more of that.
Yes. Is the transportation still an issue?
That is not the key. The key factor is just apathy and not coming.
Yeah.
We did a deep dive. Or is it transportation? It's really.
Students have a choice.
Yeah, it's a choice to come
They
to
have
school.
a choice to come to school.
And there lies the issue.
Yeah, and I guess my big push is like, maybe there needs to, and I don't know if it's been done or not, more emphasis on incentives or rewarding those who do come.
Across
Because I
every
have to
school.
lecture my children, because they're like, I have perfect attendance, who cares? And for them, I'm like, I can reward and incentivize that, but it'd be great if the school did something too, to be like, hey, you get a pizza party or whatever. And then the kids who aren't coming, they're missing out in a good way, because then they'll be like, hey, I need to get there and get the pizza. I get pizza if I only miss one day. So I just wish there was a little bit more focus on not just focusing on the ones who are struggling, but rewarding the ones who are doing it.
But they do. So every school came in and presented.
They do.
Every school has some sort of So I will check on Fremont, but every single school has, they have incentivized out the, giving bikes, giving perfect attendance awards, giving, and they all come in to present to us to show us what they're doing on attendance. Every single one of them has some sort of incentives, celebrations, and interventions as well. I cannot say there was one school that didn't have some sort of plan for attacking it. So when you ask what's working, just some schools have had more success with their interventions than others, and we do make sure that we share, have principals share what they've been doing so that they can learn from each other. An example is at Verona, she had a process. Do you want to remind, what did we celebrate about Verona?
She was doing attendance streaks, so similar to Snapchat streaks, where students get a fresh start each time. So we're going to try to do 5 days in a row and then 10 days in a row and build some strong habits.
And that was working for her. So we shared that with others instead of like trying to say, come to school, perfect attendance. You didn't get 5 days. You didn't get 7 days.
Insurmountable feeling.
Yes, for some of our students, it's insurmountable. And then it's like, I've lost, why am I going to try again? And so we then had that shared with others. So I can honestly say, if there's any space in this district, our principals went hard on attendance to the best of their ability. And then here are our attendance rates over time by race.
What's the y-axis? Is that percentage?
Yes, average daily attendance, ADA. Okay. And this one is average daily attendance. So looking at what was the average daily attendance in 21, 22, 22, 23, and 23, 24. And AIR shared this just as a portrait of, even though chronic absenteeism is still a problem, we do have kids coming more on average to school.
But I think you can celebrate that. Blue line 22, 23, each of the buildings has increased for this year.
Especially our middle schools, which is where our issues were. So the middle schools were bringing everybody up. Again, I want to say we show this to show that we are at least moving. However, we still have significant chronic absenteeism. So I don't want to sugarcoat and say we've gotten there. We've made some shifts, but we have got to get more kids to school on a regular basis. And if they're not here, we can't educate them.
Right.
And so where we are being held accountable for academic outcomes, you can't educate kids that aren't in school. So our first line of defense is getting kids to school every day.
And chronic absenteeism was like 10 or more absences?
10% of the year. 10%. Missing more than 10% of the year. And that, so it shifts. The more days you're in school.
It's like 18 days, right?
18 or more, is that correct?
17.
17.
17 absences.
It's chronic.
For the year. That's like a month, right?
And so in those numbers, and I'm just curious, is there a certain percentage of students as far as regulars that are accounting for these numbers? Or for instance, is it the same kid, is it the same family that may have a high school kid, a elementary kid? I'm just curious.
I think it's too widespread. It's too broad. More than 50% of this district does not have good attendance. So put that in perspective. More than 50% of the students in this district do not come to school regularly.
How's that compare to other districts?
It's similar in urban districts. That's where we are.
I mean, in this city, though.
One of them said they were struggling with that at the chamber. When they asked what is the most important issue you're facing, all the superintendents said chronic absenteeism.
But what is the number?
Yeah.
I don't know. I can see if we can get that information.
That's one time I'd be interested in city dynamics versus the district.
I do know it is more significant here, but everybody has a problem.
Well, there's a relationship to household
Because in line with this, we have more homeless students this
Yes.
year, unhoused and transient populations. And so that's why the work with housing and economic development is so critical. Schools and cities are inextricably linked, so, and it's more pervasive here in the city of Battle Creek for our families. This is average daily attendance by school and year. I'm just going to move to climate and culture. So our disciplinary incidents are down 20% from 22 to 23 and nearly 30% since the start of the district transformation. Our disproportionate number of disciplinary actions for Black students remains a concern. The gap narrowed slightly, including a roughly 20% decrease from 22 to 23. Trustee Perry asked specifically what percentage of our district is African American students versus the number that are receiving disciplinary actions, and so I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into that and ask AIR to give me more specifics on those percentages. Teachers expressing challenges regarding building safety has improved from 60% to 43%. The reasons that's an improvement because more teachers were saying this was a problem. It's still not something to celebrate until I can get it down to 20%. Because there's always going to be someone who doesn't believe that the challenges are enough for them to handle, but we do want to make sure that they have access to the resources they need to handle those.
When you say building safety, is this related to
Discipline.
Discipline?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, because I'm like, that's
Yes.
a broad topic. Okay.
Yeah,
I got
this
you.
is under the climate and culture.
Okay.
And so this just looks at where our discipline was in 2017-18 at the start of the transformation. There is this concern that, you know, all of our students are always having problems. But if you take these numbers and you break it down to the number of students that are actually having discipline incidents, it is less than 10% of the 4,000 students that we have.
And this isn't a drop, because you know I hate this metric. This isn't a drop because we're not issuing it, right? Okay.
Correct. Because this actually is the number that teachers have control over. They can just send them, right? And then district-wide disciplinary incidents by race here. And our celebrate.
I'm still curious as to, I'm gonna keep hitting on that, harping on this, is the family, the number of certain families. And because you could have, not saying this is the case, just what I've seen, you could have certain families, it could be 4 or 5, and they could constantly be getting into trouble, which is driving your numbers. So I'm curious, again, as far as the family unit.
I understand that better now by how many students account for the number of those 7,000 incidents, right? What number of students? And we do have that. We look at it by number of students as well as by number of incidents. And so I can bring that back to you.
How many? 10% you mentioned?
Yeah.
So if we got 10% that are constantly caused, are we doing some sort of intervention around that, or do you don't need to be in this district type of situation,
No,
or
it's
do you
more
only
about
look at behavior?
intervention and prevention. So, right, and so those are students that might go to rec.
Okay.
40 of those students are in the rec program. Some of them are going through peer review with our DHS, Child Protective, those other organizations. So they go through a whole host of supports to make sure that we can try to get them back on track.
So when I look at the stratified data on all these different data points, some of it is you can, regardless of what race or whatever, when you have some students who aren't engaged, is just due to accountability, right? Family accountability. But it makes me wonder what are when we see disparities like this, like what are we as a community? We are not reaching populations of folks, right? Like what are we not? what are we not doing, right? And we might have to adjust our messaging. So a lot of us grew up in families where we didn't have a choice, right? Education was what it is. And it just is what it is. That's not the case in a lot of families. And so I think we have to think about, like, we have an expectation for families to encourage your kids to go to school who may not have that expectation, and do we need to adjust the messaging as a community, right? Like, why is it that they feel apathetic and have lost a hope or just don't have a value for this in general? And what is our responsibility to be doing some outreach and shifting the way that we're relating to families? And it could be because they haven't seen it make a difference in their own life, right? So why am I expected? So I think some of this is just a hard conversation in general, right? For us to think about, like, how do we shift? When we talk about parent engagement, how do we talk about what's your vision for your family, and this is how you set your child up for success, right? Even if that wasn't your experience, how do we not project that down, in other generations? So I think some of it is shifting from this expectation that kids should be at school, and we have to do some motivational interviewing, like, this is where you are, and increase the value proposition for wanting to be in there.
Don't you think it belongs to choices too? Is the choice to make sure I attend school on a regular basis? Why is that choice?
Why is it important?
Not why is it important, as well as why is it not being followed through?
I think the fact that my generation, there was no choice. You knew you had to go to school.
Yes.
And it came natural. But as society continued to dictate, it was not important. You go if you want to go, you don't have to. Some moms themselves may never have been interested in school, so they're not interested if their kids are going or not.
What's that ODR?
Laid the data of the chronic absenteeism against discipline. Are there overlaps there? Because it's just what I'm working through in my mind is that we have people ain't coming, but then we have all of this discipline. So it's like, are those two?
Yes.
Can we look at those and compare them, or have you
We
done that
are looking
already?
at those
Okay.
right now,
All
and unpacking where one ends and the other begins. We're having some deep conversations about look at your suspensions and look at your absenteeism, and try to unpack that. So we are going very deep with that right now.
I think
That is Dr. Cheek's office area, and she's smiling because she's like, yup, that's what I'm doing right now.
I think to the fact that Trustee McClenny was talking about families, and I think we all know we have some families within our community who are frequent flyers, and so they may be adjusting our numbers up and down with their particular behaviors. If there's 5 or 6 in there, we know our numbers are going to fluctuate because we know those families.
What is that ODR at the end?
Office
of the slide?
discipline referrals. Office discipline referrals. So there was something that came up. Oh, when I had the opportunity to keynote at the Ministerial Alliance, one of the things that I said is that what we have to be careful about is saying when I was in school. And the reason I say that because this isn't that time. It's nowhere near when we were in school. And so we have to look at this with a different lens. And I think I can appreciate what you're saying about this is a community issue right now. There's an apathy, a lack of hope. And it can't just be on the schools to instill hope.
Right.
And it's why Dr. Cheeks, her team, myself, we sat with all the ministers to say, how can you leverage your church to help us with this messaging around the importance of being in school? What can you do, bringing partners to our schools to help us with this? Because it really is more, people can't see beyond tomorrow if their life circumstances have other things like homelessness and all of that. And we got to address that as well. Because that's what I'm hearing from some of our kids and families. I stayed home, so when we dig into it, I'll give you some stories. One of the students said, I stayed home because my sibling had to stay home, but my mom had to go to work.
Exactly,
so
and that's a lot of it.
It was a lot of those kinds of stories of, well, they were at home, so I had to stay home. And my mom
parent illness came up a lot, where the kids are staying home to take care of parents. So this is not just about, it's also about just life circumstances and the community dynamics that we have to really continue to work on as well. So, and those are the types of things that you can't incentivize.
Right, that's
You
true.
can't incentivize a kid to leave their parent at home sick.
Right.
So,
But if that is the case, I'm quick to say when we used to be in school, because I still think we need to go back then. But looking at it from a different lens, if that is the case, then we should be able to, somewhere in that data, that kid that you're talking about, I don't think it should be counted as just, he's missing school, he's missing school, he's missing school. If that's the case, then somewhere in that data, an opportunity, if that's the case, should be provided for that kid to receive what he's missing at home, if that's the case. And that should be explained in that data, which would drop the numbers. However you want to come up with whatever.
Excused versus unexcused.
Yes.
there's no such thing as an excused absence in Michigan.
That's a problem. That's a problem.
So there isn't.
So you got medical appointments, you got anything, and
You're either in school or
You're not. And this is a unique student data, right? So this is just if one student misses, so it may be helpful to see the unique student data. So like we had 100 days missed, but it was 3 students. You know what I mean? So it might be good to see that.
That's,
Yep. And we
There's
do
3
look at that,
families.
we can provide that. So I always, so I balance between what level of detail and, because we can give you 2,000 pages. But in our deep dive meetings, we're looking down to, my saying here, and you guys have heard me say this, is we see every child by name, need, and strength. And so this data is aggregate information for the public, but we're down to the individual child, down to how many credits, how many days, what are we doing about it. That's happening in our SST meetings. Okay. So I apologize, and I will try to, I live in the space of how much is too much, but I will always, if there's a specific question that you want answered, we will absolutely make sure you have access to that. But to the point of seeing every child by name, need, and strength, the way we do that is once they rise to the level, beyond the level of the school to handle, we have what's called the district student success team. So every school has a success team where they're looking at the individual need of a child. If they can't solve the problem, they can bring them to the district student success team. This year, Monique's team looked at 31 students who received district or community wraparound supports. That is at the district level, beyond the supports that they've received at the school level. 15 students who are identified as homeless received alternative transportation to maintain their attendance, meeting family needs through laundry events, gas cards, bus passes, service referrals. We are doing the spaghetti on this one. Throwing a bunch of stuff to see what the district counselor supported 12 long-term suspended students and 2 student groups so that we could increase their attendance from 47 to 55% and decrease the level, the number of discipline incidents.
This is through community partners though, right? Not the school?
This one was our counselor. We have a district counselor.
No, I'm talking about this whole, that last bullet, I get that, but the whole slide, so the 31 students, those wraparounds, that's from the district specifically, or are we using community partners for
District.
that?
This is district-related supports, why we have our own supports. This doesn't include the additional community support. So thank you for that clarification. So what were our lessons learned? Engagement is key. High engagement levels correlate with better outcomes for both staff and students. Our communication needs improvement. Effective two-way communication is essential for fostering a positive culture. We've tried a lot of things and we still will continue to figure out what the magic bullet is. Support systems are crucial. Providing robust support services helps students overcome challenges, and consistency is key. Consistent application of policies and supports leads to better outcomes. So we'll continue to build a culture of high engagement and customer service, and we will continue to work on improving more robust communication channels that help us better connect with our internal and external stakeholders. And our top goal, most important goal, is high academic achievement. Our students have shown resilience and determination with attendance rates rebounding post-pandemic and a reduction in disciplinary incidents. We are perfectly positioned to create future success. So, how have we done? Since the pandemic, BCPS students, the performance in M-STEP has improved relative to the state average in both ELA and math. Spring 2024 was the highest percentile BCPS has reached since the start of the transformation in math. Our Hispanic students have made the greatest M-STEP gains of any group of students in BCPS since the beginning of the transformation relative to the state average, outperforming their peers in comparison districts. BCPS kindergartners showed great gains throughout the year, reaching the 63rd percentile in reading and the 68th percentile in math. And the 50th is where we're always shooting for, so it was great to see that. So K-8 reading and math growth, because they're the ones who take the NWEA map. While student achievement is still below the median, there have been steady gains over the past 2 years, with percentile rankings in math reaching a peak since the start of the transformation in the spring of 2024. Earlier grades showed the most progress prior to the pandemic, but also experienced the sharpest decline since the start of pandemic. However, we are seeing that our early grades are now showing the sharpest post-pandemic gains as well. So they're on the rise, coming back up. By race, our progress has been slow. So we're looking for that, what is the magic bullet for transformational rapid improvement? That's what we want to see. Math proficiency by race. Across all student groups, there are still notable disparities which have widened over time. So that's what we want to look at. Increases, but we want to close the gap. Since the transformation, there has been a net gain in English language arts scores relative to the state average. ELA scores in 2022 for both BCPS and comparison districts increased, but showed a decline in 2023. Student growth in ELA has improved since the start of the transformation relative to our comparison districts. So they look at districts who like similar size, background, demographic makeup. And despite the improvement, though, student growth in ELA has remained relatively stagnant since COVID and continues to remain below the 50th percentile. So if we think about it overall, we're still below the 50th, and we have to get above the 50th percentile for us to feel good about making progress towards our goals. The district has not made gains in math achievement relative to the state average, largely following a trend similar to that of our comparison districts and remaining low through 2023. Although BCPS math test scores consistently lag behind the state average, the district has shown gains when compared to other districts of similar size and demographics.
So comparison district average, and I hear you referencing state average, that the state average line is not on this chart, is it? Or is that the comparison district?
The comparison district is similar in size and demographics, yes.
But the state is not.
The state is not on here.
Okay.
Did you want to see what the state score is?
Yeah, that would be good to incorporate it in the future.
I'll tell AIR if they can ask that. So average math growth for BCPS students has largely mirrored changes in math growth in the synthetic district. And so I said, AIR, what is that? And so what they tried to do is they want to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples. And so when they look at districts that are similar to Battle Creek Public Schools, are we doing better, worse, or in line with them? And at the end of the day, there's been some recovery in math growth in BCPS since 2021, and not comparing us to like Farmington Hills or other areas like that. In order to make sure that we're making good comparisons in our data. So what are the celebrations around this? A strong majority of the students, this year AIR added students to the data, not just the teachers. In grades 6 through 9, they reported supportive and active learning strategies being used, and our EL supports continue to improve. 80% of teachers say adequate support services are available. In 2018, that was at 50%, and 79% say adequate communication is offered. And when we first started this transformation, it was at 45%. Supportive teacher practices reported by 6th through 9th graders. So this was a graph just where they were asked, how does the teacher encourage me to do my best? Do they encourage me to solve problems, help me understand? And this is what the students said. We're looking at the space where they say pushes me to become a better thinker, right? We want all of our students to be pushed. So, looking at, do we provide adequate support services for families of ELs? 80% said yes, and this is just showing the change over time. Adequate communication with parents of ELL students, and my school has clearly defined plan for ELL students and adequate curriculum and instruction. So the instruction seems to be the place where we need to do more work, but the other areas are continuing to improve.
EL is English
learners, yes. So when we started this transformation, our communication and support of EL students was in the low 25%, 45%, and we really did do a lot of work at increasing staff, creating language access, and robust supports, and you can see the impact of that work. So, now let's talk about the Bearcat Advantage. What have we learned after the first year of implementation? And this is just initial data. So we have 42 accepted the Bearcat Advantage scholarships this year. 3 are going to an HBCU, and 7 of those are with the MCA partnership. MCA are the private schools, so we have 7 students that are accessing that partnership. 120 Legacy Scholar applications this year. That's huge. That is the number of students that have also said, I could probably start at KCC. The percentage of BCPS students enrolling in college within 6 months of graduation has increased since 2018, outpacing college enrollment in comparison districts. 52 students participated in dual enrollment and earned 309 college credits this year.
That's impressive.
Very good.
90% of our 2024 graduates had a post-secondary plan in place, and this is where our students are going.
Do we have a comparable number for Legacy Scholars like from last year?
I can get that. So,
It's higher. I don't know.
It's higher, but what it was, I need to find out.
Okay. And then do we dig into like the trade school, military workforce? I see those are the plans, but do we know, like, looking back, who did those actual things?
We didn't, but now Upjohn Institute on board, that's what they're gonna try to help us vet out for, so we can see the impact of the Bearcat Advantage. We were not tracking any of that data prior to the Bearcat Advantage, so this is gonna be your baseline. and now let's see what happens afterwards. What they told us is it is really hard once kids leave us. We don't have access to that data, but we did purchase it's a subscription into a program that actually tries to track them once they leave us. So I'm looking forward to reporting that to you as we go.
And it won't just be focused on college, it's like all, because we say, I'm saying this because we're college, career, and community readiness, so we don't really talk about the career community piece much. So that's why I was curious.
The
about.
trade school workforce,
Yeah,
what
I
happens
didn't know.
once they leave us?
Right.
I would have to, I'm gonna ask them, is there a way to collect that?
Yeah.
It would be kind of hard. Once
Okay.
you leave, we don't have any access to your data, so, but it's a goal.
You can Facebook.
Okay.
But yeah, that would be interesting if we could find a way to track, not just college, but other things, since our mantra is 100% success. That's why I was wondering.
I appreciate that. So we learned that our success in second grade showed that if we focus our efforts, we can lead to substantial improvements, and that support is essential. Many of our new staff required more coaching than anticipated. This underscores the need for continuous professional development and support. Looking ahead, we're going to replicate the strategies that worked in our second grade classrooms. We saw significant changes in that data, and that came as we looked at second grade data, we saw that it wasn't moving. We put together a power team, went directly at it, and the data changed. So we're going to replicate that across the rest. The same thing happened at our 9th grade, which is not in here, but we looked at the number of students that were off track for graduation. We created what's called a power hour, where we met and looked at every single one of those kids, and more of those kids are on track now. So it really, what we learned is that when you really focus intentionally on a group and you look at every child by name, need, and strength, you can move the needle, but it has to be a regular, weekly meeting, looking at data.
Were those grades just chosen because they were getting low at the time?
So we have quarterly review of data, and we see where are the issues that are occurring, and then the next step is to develop a plan to address those. And the issues that we saw were 2nd and 9th grade. More so than any, we saw lots of issues, but those were the ones where we know. And the reason they were selected is because 2nd grade is a very pivotal year for getting kids to read, and 9th grade is the year that matters for graduation.
So those continue, those interventions, or is it like you?
No, you should be able, no. So we learned that we're gonna keep those, right? Yes, right? So, it is clear that our district has made significant strides in several key areas. However, to fully leverage the potential of our new scholarship program, it's imperative to integrate these insights into a targeted relaunch of our initiatives that places a laser-like focus on academic outcomes. So great things are happening in Battle Creek Public Schools.
You guys must share that photo.
Oh, look at us. Charlie with his fan.
Actually, yeah, it was Kim's fan because I broke mine.
You broke yours?
Yes. So any questions, things that we want to note for further consideration?
I liked your graphs we've had in the past where it shows the actual grade levels, their reading as well as math scores. You've shown us in grade level comparisons to a previous year.
Yep.
You know, if you only wanted to go from 22 to 23 to this year, those were really helpful graphs.
And those just weren't ready, but I will circle back and get them back to you. So we will make sure that those come to our next meeting.
I think it was a very good report. Yes, like you said, we have still lots of work to do. Great job, well done. Anyone else have anything else? Okay. Moving right along. Public comment? Thank you very much. Okay. The chair will now entertain a motion on new business.
President Poole Gray?
That's Trustee
I'd
LaValle.
like to make a motion that we approve the MHSAA 2024-25 membership resolution.
Support.
It's been moved by trustee LaValle, supported by trustee Fulbright, that we approve the Michigan High School Athletic Association. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed say no. Thank you, motion carried. The chair will now entertain a motion with the K through 5 literacy curriculum resource.
President Poole-Gray,
Yes, trustee LaValle?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the K through 5 literacy curricular resource with HLM, hope I'm right on those things, in the amount of $694,586.52, with support of the funding of ESSER for the amount of $194,000. That would be $196,400, and the other amount of $186,186.52 with the 35J grant.
Support.
It's been moved by trustee LaValle, supported by trustee Fulbright, that we approve the K through 5 literacy curriculum resource. Is there any discussion?
Madam President?
Yes, trustee Fulbright.
I just wanted to remind us, and maybe there is a deadline for this, but I feel like we're getting more back into our old ways where at the work session we introduce it, we talk about it, and then we make the decision then instead of waiting 2 weeks. So I just want to remind us that our procedure, our unwritten rule, or our practice has been to talk about it one meeting at the work session, and then the regular meeting vote on it. So I see both of these, B and C, are both, we talked about today, and now we're voting on it, so. just an
Duly
FYI.
noted. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All those opposed say no. Motion carried. We'll now go to the police liaison agreements.
President Poole-Gray,
Yes, Dr. Johnson?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the police liaison agreement, better known as the school resource officer agreement.
I'll support that, but
Yeah.
could we call it the school resource officer agreement?
Okay. It's been moved by Dr. Johnson, supported by trustee LaValle, that we approve the school resource agreement officer. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, oh, wait a minute, roll call vote. Sorry,
Roll call.
we have to do a roll call vote.
Catherine LaValle,
Yes.
Dr. Johnson,
Yes.
Nathan Graycheck,
No.
Sally Fulbright,
Yes.
Art McClinney,
Yes.
Patty Poole-Gray.
Yes. Motion carried. Okay. All right, we're gonna move on to consideration to go into closed session. Let's do a 5-minute break and come back for our
Oh, look at that picture.
Thank you for waiting on us. We appreciate it.
Madam President,
Yes, Trustee Fulbright.
I move that we reconvene our open session.
It's been moved by Trustee Fulbright, supported by Trustee LaValle, that we go back into our session. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All those opposed say no. Motion carried. Superintendent comments.
No comments tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Board member comments. Seeing none. Thank you. The chair will now entertain a motion for adjournment. Seeing none. Meeting adjourned. Thank you guys for coming out. Seeing none.
We bid tomorrow, Coco. Patiently waiting out
Oh
there.
my goodness.
Yes, that is a good one.
That's a cute picture.
Sure, next
So I just, yes, please,
Everything
don't take
send
a
it- don't
picture
take a
of me.
Everything send it.
I would like the actual